Human babies are so helpless that, biologically speaking, humans should have never become Earth's most dominant species. Yet somehow we did. A baby horse can stand within an hour of being born. A sea turtle hatches alone on a beach and immediately runs for the ocean while predators wait overhead. Baby giraffes hit the ground from nearly 6 feet in the air and somehow survive the experience like nature expects competence from day one. And then there's humans. The first time I really stopped to think about human babies, I honestly couldn't believe how absurd they are. A newborn human can't walk, can't feed itself, can't survive alone for more than a few hours. It can barely control its own body. For months, it doesn't even fully understand that it exists separately from its mother. If you described a human baby to an alien species without context, it would sound less like the beginning of the planet's dominant life form and more like some kind of evolutionary mistake. And that contradiction kept bothering me, because humans conquered Earth, we built civilizations, we split the atom. We created art, religion, philosophy, skyscrapers, and machines capable of landing on other planets. Human intelligence transformed the entire world. So how does a species powerful enough to reshape reality begin life more helpless than almost every other animal on Earth? The more I looked into it, the stranger the answer became, because human babies are not weak because evolution failed to finish the job. They're weak because our species pushed evolution into a corner, and the thing that trapped us was the same thing that made us human in the first place. Our brains, for most animals, birth is the finish line for development, but for humans, birth is more like an emergency exit. A baby arrives while huge parts of its brain are still unfinished, still wiring themselves together, still under construction. And once I realized that, I started seeing human childhood completely differently, not as a flaw, but as one of the strangest and most important evolutionary trade-offs ever made. And the deeper I went into that question, the more human evolution started feeling less like a perfectly engineered system, and more like a desperate biological compromise. Because millions of years ago, our ancestors changed the way they moved through the world forever. They stood up, at first. Walking on 2 legs sounds like one of humanity's greatest upgrades. It freed our hands, improved endurance, and eventually helped humans travel across enormous distances. But evolution never gives advantages without attaching consequences somewhere else in the body. The human pelvis had to change shape to support upright walking. It became narrower, more compact, more efficient for balance and movement. And that would have been fine if our brains had stayed small. But they didn't. Human brains kept growing. Bigger brains meant better memory, better planning, more complex social behavior, more creativity. Every generation that became slightly smarter gained enormous survival advantages over the world around them. But there was a hidden problem slowly building inside the human body. Babies still had to fit through the birth canal. And at some point, those two evolutionary forces started colliding with each other. A narrow pelvis optimized for walking, a giant skull optimized for intelligence. Anthropologists call this the obstetric dilemma, but honestly, the phrase feels too clean for how brutal the situation really was. Human childbirth became unusually dangerous because evolution was trying to force 2 incompatible upgrades into the same species at the same time. The more I read about it, the more shocking it became to me that humans survived this at all. Compared to most mammals, human birth is incredibly difficult. A baby's head has to rotate while passing through the pelvis because the fit is so tight that even small differences matter. Before modern medicine, childbirth was one of the most dangerous experiences in human life. And eventually evolution reached a wall. Either babies had to be born earlier, or their heads would become too large to survive birth safely. So evolution made a compromise that changed the entire future of our species. Humans began entering the world before they were truly ready for it. And that single compromise may be one of the strangest decisions evolution ever made, because human babies are not simply born weak, They're born unfinished. Not premature in the medical sense, but developmentally unfinished compared to almost every other large mammal on Earth. A newborn horse arrives with functioning coordination because most of its critical development already happened inside the womb. Human babies, meanwhile, enter the world while enormous portions of brain development are still actively taking place. When I first learned that scientists estimate a truly, fully developed, human baby might require something closer to 18 months of pregnancy instead of 9, it completely changed how I viewed early human life. Because suddenly, newborn behavior stopped looking broken, it started looking interrupted. The problem is that a baby's head already barely fits through the human pelvis after 9 months. Extending pregnancy much longer would make childbirth almost impossible. So evolution settled on a compromise that feels both ingenious and deeply uncomfortable at the same time. Get the baby out early, finish construction later. In a strange way, the first year of human life is almost like an extension of pregnancy happening outside the womb. And once I started thinking about it like that, so many things suddenly made sense. Why newborns sleep so much, why they require constant physical contact, why their brains absorb information at such an absurd speed. During the first year alone, the human brain roughly doubles in size. Neural pathways are forming constantly. Systems related to language, emotional recognition, memory, movement, and social attachment are still wiring themselves together in real time. Most animals are born with behavior already heavily programmed by instinct. Humans are different. Human babies arrive with extraordinary potential, but relatively little certainty about how that potential will be used. Their brains are waiting for the environment to shape them. And honestly, I think that's what makes human beings so fascinating. We don't enter the world finished, we enter adaptable. Our earliest weakness may actually be the foundation for everything humans eventually become later in life. And the more I thought about that adaptability, the more I started realizing that human intelligence may have come from something much deeper than just having a bigger brain. Because a bigger brain alone doesn't automatically create civilization. What matters is what that brain is designed to do. A spider is born knowing how to spin a web. A bird doesn't need to invent flight from scratch. So much of animal behavior is pre-written by evolution long before the creature is even born. Instinct is efficient because it allows survival immediately. Humans took a far riskier path. Instead of hard-coding most behavior into instinct, evolution gave us a brain that stays open long enough to be shaped by experience. And honestly, that may be the real reason humans became so powerful. Human children spend years learning things other animals already know instinctively. They imitate adults, test boundaries, invent games, ask endless questions, observe social behavior, and constantly experiment with the world around them. For a long time, scientists saw this long childhood as a side effect of intelligence, but now, some researchers suspect the opposite might also be true. Long childhoods may have helped create intelligence itself. That idea genuinely changed the way I look at children, because play suddenly stops looking trivial. It becomes training. Every imaginary game, every social conflict, every moment of curiosity is helping build predictive models of reality inside the brain. Children are learning language, cooperation, deception, creativity, emotional control, and problem-solving through constant experimentation. They are effectively running simulations for adulthood, and humans extended that learning window further than almost any species on Earth. The result is a creature that is less controlled by rigid instinct and more shaped by culture, environment, and accumulated knowledge. A human born in the Arctic can grow into someone completely different from a human raised in a tropical jungle or a massive modern city. That flexibility is extraordinary. Evolution didn't make humans specialists, it made us adaptable learners. And maybe that's why humans eventually spread into nearly every environment on Earth. Not because we were born ready for the world, but because we were born ready to learn how to survive inside almost any version of it. And maybe the strangest part of all is that this helplessness didn't just shape individual humans, it may have shaped human society itself. Because raising a human child is unbelievably demanding, human babies require constant attention for years. They can't cling to their parents the way baby monkeys do. They wake up repeatedly during the night, need endless protection, and depend on emotional connection almost as much as physical care. The more I thought about that, the harder it became to imagine early humans surviving through isolated parenting alone. And that's exactly what many anthropologists believe happened. Humans evolved into cooperative caregivers. Grandparents helped raise children, older siblings helped, fathers helped. Entire groups became involved in keeping vulnerable children alive long enough for those massive unfinished brains to mature. In a strange way, our social nature may have emerged partly because human babies were simply too difficult to raise alone. And honestly, I find that idea deeply moving, because it means some of the traits we associate most strongly with humanity, empathy, cooperation, emotional intelligence, long-term bonding, may trace back to the vulnerability of our own children. Even cuteness starts looking different once you see it through evolution. Large eyes, round cheeks, small noses, soft facial proportions. These features trigger nurturing instincts so powerfully that humans respond emotionally almost automatically. Evolution didn't just make babies dependent, it also made adults psychologically attached to protecting them. It's almost like nature built an emotional survival mechanism around helplessness itself. And when you zoom out far enough, the entire story becomes kind of unbelievable. Our brains grew larger, our bodies struggled to adapt, babies began arriving unfinished. Long childhoods created learning, learning created intelligence, intelligence created civilization. Every scientific discovery, every city, every philosophy, every piece of art, every machine humanity has ever built came from a species that begins life unable to survive on its own. And maybe that's the real irony of being human. The dominant species on Earth starts out completely helpless. Not because evolution made a mistake, but because helplessness gave us time. Time to learn, time to connect, time to become something no other animal ever became. Maybe the deepest lesson in all of this is that growth does not come from being fully prepared from the beginning. Humans became extraordinary not because we were born strong, complete, or independent, but because we were given time to learn, adapt, fail, and evolve through experience. In a world obsessed with instant success and perfection, it's easy to forget that unfinished does not mean flawed. Sometimes potential needs vulnerability in order to grow, and maybe that applies to our own lives too. The parts of yourself that still feel uncertain or incomplete may not be weaknesses at all. They may simply be parts of you that are still becoming. So what do you think is the most fascinating thing about human evolution or human intelligence? I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. So leave a comment below and let's talk about it together. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support us and help keep these kinds of deep explorations coming.